Welcome back, everyone. So excited to share with you the conversation I had with my guest and dear friend, Eleni Kelakos. Before we jump in, let me tell you a little bit about Eleni Kelakos. She has spent a lifetime on stage, first as a professional actress in New York and Hollywood, then as an award-winning, nationally touring singer and songwriter, and finally as a professional trainer and motivational speaker, inspiring people to bring their transformational presence to their lives, their work, and words. Since 2003, when she founded the Eleni Group, Eleni has helped countless individuals at companies like General Motors, Google, and Allstate be more relaxed and relatable when they pitch and present. When she's not coaching or training a global clientele, Eleni practices what she preaches, firing up hearts and minds with signature keynote presentations at conferences and events. A double major in theater and semiotics from Brown University, Eleni is a past president of the National Speakers Association of Michigan. She's produced 4 CDs of original songs and was a finalist in several prestigious national songwriting competitions. Her songs have been featured in the film Jill and Jack and danced to by America's Got Talent semi-finalist Beth Ann Robinson. Eleni's book, Touch the Sky, Find Your Voice, Speak Your Truth, Make Your Mark, was a gold medal winner of the 2014 Global eBook Awards. She recently released Claim the Stage, A Woman's Guide to Speaking Up, Standing Out, and Taking Leadership, which reached #1 Amazon bestseller status. Eleni lives happily with her husband, Jim, and 2 constantly shedding cats in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We covered a wide range of topics in this conversation and dive into her latest book, where she offers some wonderful tools for people, myself included, to step up, show up, and speak up so we can pursue our potential. And we close out the podcast with a special musical treat, so please hang in there to the end. Okay, here we are. Welcome to There's More to Our Story, Eleni Kelakos.
Well, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
For everybody listening, Eleni Kelakos and I go back a couple of years. I don't even know how to do the math, Eleni Kelakos. What feels like it wasn't that long ago, and then I was listening to "I Will Fly," which I told you a little bit earlier, which is a incredible album, CD. What do we call it now? They're not
I know,
albums
right?
anymore.
It's officially a CD.
Yeah.
But I'm old enough to remember albums.
Me
but
too.
It's officially a CD.
It's a CD. It's a spectacular, and I was listening to it, and then I saw the copyright date, and I'm like, we did not do. I remember when you recorded that CD, and wow, okay, time
I
flies.
know.
Time flies. So I'm gonna just ask you for everybody who might be listening, tell us a little bit about you. Give us a little background about Eleni.
Well, I started out my career as an actress in New York and LA. When I met you, that's where we were. We were in California, and I was at that time transitioning from being an actress into being a singer and songwriter. I was ambushed by songs at that time, actually, that needed to be written. And I noticed that a lot of the songs that were coming out of me were um, about women's experience. I mean, I'm a woman, so hey, you know, not a big shock there. But I was wanting to shine a spotlight on what I felt were women's issues. And some of them weren't so pretty, on things like spousal abuse. And, you know, always I noticed that there was this through line in there that was all about trying to empower women and to encourage women to elevate themselves to the best of their abilities, to really just to maximize their potential. And now when I look at it, I think I've always been like that anyway, even as a kid. And that was reflected all through my work. I was always attracted as an actress to roles where the to strong women, and I was always, roles that epitomized that kind of mission driven, full throated, full voiced characters, and that had depth, and that were about something that mattered, you know what I mean? So it was interesting to see this sort of developed into this singer-songwriter career and several albums that I put out, which is when you and I began to know each other and hang out. And from there I morphed into becoming a workshop leader. I started the songs that I was writing and recording. People would say to me, "Hey, I really like that. Can you come to our retreats and perform some of them?" And then they would say, "Oh, that's really great. Could you do a little workshop of some kind while you're here?" So I started doing these workshops that were all about finding voice and putting it out there. And I called those the music workshops. I don't know if I ever told you that, Elisa, but I
That's
it was
fabulous.
it was really all about standing in who you are and literally putting your voice out there, not being
Mm,
afraid to make sound and take up space. And then over time, I wrote a song called The Tallest Poppy. And you know that song. It's one
I
of my
do know
favorite
that
songs
song.
about a little poppy in a poppy field who dares to really go over the limit sign, pass through it. She's living in a land, the little poppy land, where everyone's supposed to be a certain height as a little poppy, and she breaks through. She
Mhm.
decides, no, I'm not going to limit myself. I'm not going to play small. And in so doing, she inspires a whole generation of other little poppies to follow suit and to be everything they can be. So that song kicked off a Tallest Poppy program and one woman show that I took into schools to try to help girls budding into young womanhood in middle school, right? Where they start hearing, don't be you, or, um, uh, don't, don't, don't show off, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Don't speak up, hide in the pack. And I wanted them to hear a different message. So I started doing this show and this accompanying workshop. And at the time, I talked to a professional speaker who said to me, "Hey, you should put together something like that for adults."
Mhm.
And so I did. I put together something called Touch the Sky. And this whole career was born of doing workshops and speaking engagements. And tangentially, I moved to a new state to be with my new husband. And I started a coaching business based on my acting background and all those years of being on a stage, having found my voice and my
Mhm.
uh, ability to stand in front of groups and be relaxed and real and present. And I started teaching presentation skills and presence, under pressure. So it all came together. All of these things all came together, Lisa. And now 20 years later,
Mhm.
20 years later, I'm thinking of this because I'm going on 20 years of having incorporated, right? Of having, you know, actually formalized my business. Here I am.
Wow. Well, okay, so what's so fascinating about and the through line of what I'm trying to do, and you know a little bit about the concept of there's more to our story, is connecting, when especially with women when they age, we get sort of aged out in a lot of the storytelling, which is a common theme for for a lot of actresses, which you're very familiar with because you were in this town, you understand it. Um, but what I heard from what you just said, the through line is how storytelling can influence a way of thinking, a different approach. It has value depending on the stories you hear and who's telling them. Because if you've only heard one point of view, one story, which is, like you said, when you went into the middle school, you wanted them to hear a different point of view, just to hear, and you did it through song. I mean, were an actress as a storyteller through that that, actors are storytellers. They're
That's
using
right.
scripts and plays, and then you became a storyteller in your music, and I've watched you perform multiple times, and there's a story to every one of the pieces of music you've written. There's a story behind all of it. And then now you are finding a way to take that, and you took all of that skill set and you're sharing it yet again to give people and women, but mostly women, not just women, but women, the permission that sometimes we feel we need to share their story. And
Exactly.
I am one to so for me, there's more to our story in terms of what I've been telling on the podcast is the connection between the mass media's limited narratives and limited story and roles and messages that for a long time have been all women heard, and especially as they get older they start to just disappear. And um, if we can open up the avenue to more stories, more storytellers, you're going to hear more examples of what life looks like, and that maybe some of that sense of it is something weird about me, why don't I don't see myself up there. Well, we're not anomalies. Women have varied stories, varied experiences, and there has been a message when it starts being uh, removed from our mass media, a sort of a sense that it's quiet. And and you just made an example. Some of that starts pretty young, but as you age, it kind of gets a little worse in
Yeah, it
some
does. And
ways.
one of the reasons that I started to write songs is because I aged out uh in Hollywood, right? I mean, meaning I turned 30,
Mm.
and I was already struggling because I'm tall, right? I'm 6 feet tall and I'm strong and I'm dark and I'm exotic looking, what was called at the time ethnic looking, and didn't fit in easily, right?
Mm.
So I always used to say, you know, um, we need a lobby for 6 foot tall Greek American actresses because my story wasn't being told in that regard, right?
No.
If you think about it, right? So there are story. I mean, it's as if somehow being a tall, strong woman was not acceptable on the stories and in the stories. Certainly, when you watch television, even now, the women are shorter than the men.
Hmm.
Very rarely would you see the reverse, right?
Right.
So, anyway, I was beating my
So there was
head.
an importance. I mean, it's sort of what Tall as
Yes,
Poppy's about, because
yes, yes.
it's you. It's like, ooh,
Yeah.
you're standing out, and that's weird. And it's like, no, it isn't.
No, it's not. It's who I am, and I'm good with it, and that's why I wrote that song, and I wrote it because actually the tallest poppy is a kind of a syndrome or philosophy that is popular in, in particularly in Australia and New Zealand, apparently. It's really a leveling down. It's sort of like, "No, no, no, we don't want you to stick your little head above the pack. We want sameness, really." And I thought, "Well, I've never been that." So
Right.
this was my way of really expressing that very loudly too. I mean, I was like, I was adamant about writing that song, and it came in like 2 minutes in the car
Yeah.
while I was driving. But I also want to say, um, it gave me voice. See, there's this notion as well of reinvention when it comes to story too, because I think that now I'm able to look back and put a story to what occurred at the time as well.
Right.
At the time, I was floundering, but then I started paying attention to what I call the cosmic clues, and the cosmic clues were leading me to write these songs, and I gave them voice. Now I can look back and see how the story evolved from there, right?
Sure.
And it shaped my life. I mean, and it gave me the kind of sense of self and voice that I hadn't had before as I aged,
Mm.
for
Well,
one
there you
thing,
have it. You didn't
right?
lose value.
No,
You
I
gained
gained
it.
it. I
Yeah.
gained it. And I
Yeah.
also think, and I agree with you so wholeheartedly. It's why I wanted to be on your podcast, and I feel honored to be here. I don't think there's anything more important than story. I come from storytellers. My grandma on my dad's side, she was the resident griot, Griot, if you will. She was the in the small village in Greece where they were from, she was the one who would write the stories of people in poetry form when they died or for another special occasion. She would read an epic poem about them that she wrote at you know when people had gathered around the coffin. She told their stories, and this was a tradition in that part of the world and in that part of Greece. And I've often felt that I come from that. So that
Wow.
notion of the but I just
It's
think that
within you.
story,
Yeah.
yes, story is it as far as I'm concerned. And we have to take control of our stories too, is another thing I think. We have to be able to take hold of them and say, this is the story. Don't
Yeah.
tell me what my story is.
Yeah. Well, and so it excites me to say that brings me to your latest endeavor that I am holding for nobody to see because we're on audio, but
Nobody
I'm
to see.
holding this book close to my heart right now. She wrote, my dear friend Eleni wrote a beautiful book called Claim the Stage and A Woman's Guide to Speaking Up, Standing Out, and Taking Leadership. And I really want to ask you a little bit. I'm going to pop into it and read a couple of passages that have been very moving and resonated with me in so many ways. But what was the thing for you that said, okay, because you've been doing you've been writing, you've been a mentor, you're a coach. What was that? What said this book has to be written?
Well, when I really think about, there were two things. One, for easily a decade ago, I was sitting with a client, a woman client, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes and she said, Eleni, I have forgotten who I am. I have
Mm,
forgotten my voice. And I I was so moved by that. I thought, my gosh, um, it stuck with me. And I began, and I was doing work with both men and women, but I found myself with, when I was working with women, a lot of the times, women were coming to me and with a sense of feeling lost around who they were. And it was being reflected at work as well. They had a sense, at least the women that I was working with, a sense of just a lack of confidence that was getting them in trouble. They were playing small in moments that mattered, and they knew it, and they were frustrated around it. But what I think really catalyzed this book was the 2016 presidential election,
mhm.
because I thought, whatever your view of Hillary Clinton might be, okay? I'm not saying you, Elisa, but in general, anyone who might be listening. We had a woman willing to step up to the plate and share her voice and put herself out there. And she was vilified time
Yeah.
and time again. And she had trouble even just putting her voice out there because people criticized it. The tone of it, the sound of it, the shrillness of it. And she, in her book, the book she wrote after the election that she did not win, uh, she said, we need more women's voices. And I thought, yes, we do. And I feel that I need to do my part in helping that happen. I wanted to write a book that would encourage women to not just find their voice, but to find the courage to put it out there more,
Yeah.
whether they're in the boardroom or in the halls of justice, or whether they are going to throw their hat in the ring for a political position, whether they want to take their research and share it with the world on the public stage at a conference, to actually speak up, as I say, show up, step up, and speak up, and not hold it, keep it to themselves. That's why I wrote this book.
Well, I can say, and for me, as I was just getting the courage to launch my podcast, this book came into my life at the exact moment that I needed the affirmation and the skills and the tools and the steps that you outline in the book, because I was in the middle of some of them and struggling with my own uh, fears. And oh my gosh, I got to tell you, when I was in the like planning this stage and researching and technology, and I'm going to learn and I'm going to learn. And then I'm reading your book. I'm like, uh huh. Oh my gosh, yes. It's used my voice. And then it said, stop getting ready to get ready. And
Yeah.
oh my God, was that a slap upset? Because I was using my ability to research and prepare as a huge procrastination tactic because I was just scared to finally pull the trigger and go. And say, yes, because I read so much of what you wrote about here resonated. Like, who am I? What do I have to say about this subject? Who's going to think about what I want? Is who do I think I am? And I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I realized, well, you're a woman who is an actress who understands the industry a little bit and character development and storytelling, and you're a 58-year-old female navigating society. So when you have this concept of the connection to the stories that we see in women's internal stories, the voices that we tell ourselves, I have always thought there was a connection to that. Who controls the story, control the culture. And if we don't spread the storytellers beyond the same few people and the same few stories we hear, that becomes the only thing we consider as being normal, okay, and that's not a good thing.
That's right. And, I would say to you, just sort of hopping off of what you just said, who controls the stories in your head controls you.
Yeah,
So being able to manage what I call the lies that bind you, which is what you brought up, who do you think you are? Everyone can tell you're nervous, so why bother? All the stuff. You're too young to be taken to be in this leadership position, those kinds of things. We have in order to be able to even manage those things, we have to shift the story. We have to be the ones to do that work. Otherwise, we're going to get caught up in, if you will, a story in our own heads that's going to hold us back. And you, Elisa, I mean, that's the beauty of you too. And it's why I'm so happy to be here today. Here we are. You got yourself through that phase. But I always you mentioned being stuck, getting ready to get ready, and that's part of the take your cue. That's
yeah,
that phase of the 7-step cycle that I talk about, and you know that's actually phase number 7. And too many women,
mhm,
because they're so badly wanting to be perfect, really just stay stuck, perseverating and thinking and preparing because they don't want to screw up and they don't want to look bad, and it's like just a little bit more work on it, just a little bit more research, and it'll be perfect, and then I'll put it out there. And I'm all about, don't wait for perfect, just
well,
fling
can
yourself
I
in.
just so here's a question I have for you, because I have some very specific areas I want to read from the book, but one question I was curious about, because um it resonated with me quite a bit, and it's something you say right at the beginning. um it's hold on, I'm going to get to it. It said, I have so many places. I noticed at the beginning of your book you talk about having to you say it's time to fling off our cloaks of invisibility, step boldly into the spotlight, and claim the stage. One of the things that I have always said is I see a lot of articles. I've heard people my own age, well, not my personal friends, but I've read articles about this sense of invisibility as women as they age. And I think is a connection to, we sort of became invisible in our storytelling, right? We on the screen, there's not a lot of examples of people that look like us or me or whoever might be out there. So there's a sense of invisibility. I wondered, from your point of view, and the people you've coached, and the women from a variety of different ages, do you find that prevalent with any age, or does it more prevalent
Mm,
in older women? Because I
mm,
mean, I wondered if age of some of your things, you see different
mhm.
habits or feelings, or if it's sort of just universal. I'm curious.
It's a fantastic question, Elisa. uh, I feel that it's prevalent, though it gets worse as we age. But I do feel it's prevalent. And I feel that, I mean, how many women have I worked with have felt unseen at a table filled with men and unheard? It's as if they don't exist sometimes. Their ideas are overlooked, they're talked over, spoken over, they're interrupted. Men interrupt a lot more than women do, and women are uncomfortable with interruption. So women will just get quieter and quieter and quieter. And even if they bring up a wonderful idea way too many times, that idea is overlooked. And then the idea is basically shared by uh, a man, and it's heard. Suddenly everyone hears it. How many women have said to me, it's like I was invisible. It's like what I said didn't even come out of my mouth, and it's infuriating. So that seems prevalent to me. And to me, it's indicative of that sense of invisibility. We're still dealing with that after generation after generation, in my estimation. It's like there's we tend to be slightly quieter. We tend to be a little more willing to give over in the interest of preserving relationships. There's all kinds of reasons for that. But what happens is, as a result, we don't often, we might not fight for our voice as much as we could either, right?
Mhm.
We did it in middle school too. Many of us didn't raise our hands as much as the boys did,
Mhm.
and the boys were called on more than we were. It's reinforced left and right. So I see that all the time. And women almost have to go against the things they've been trained into being, and that there's some nurture there too, and nurtured into being. And excuse me, there's some nature there too. We have some wiring that supports that to a
Right.
degree. But certainly the older we get, the worse it gets. I mean, to be an older woman is not exactly something that anyone's aspiring to, from what I can tell. We're constantly, I mean, all we have to do is watch what's on the screen. Certainly, I mean, maybe we're starting to see, for example, older women up there in parts where they're with their contemporaries.
Right.
They're paired up with a man who's the same age, but typically we don't see that, do
We
we?
don't see that. It's
No,
not the norm. It's not the
it's
norm. It
not.
is starting to change, thankfully, because, I think some of this is also because women have started to get into some more leadership positions in
Absolutely.
some of the people who greenlight, but I can tell you the research has shown it's still the exception to the rule. They're slowly making those changes. The broader platforms and streaming and the need for more content, I think they're
Mm,
starting to realize as an audience out there, thankfully for those exceptions that they found out, hey, people watch this. Maybe we should do more. Hello, it's not an anomaly.
that's
Um,
right.
but but there was a recent article that I saw where even though there are women opening up production companies and we're trying to get more storytelling for a broader sense of characters. Just it's not that there are women characters, but they tend to fall into some stereotypical tropes. So they're expanding what the stories what stories are being told, but who is telling them. Because a woman telling her own story is going to tell it quite differently than the
That's
man's
right.
point of view. And it would be vice versa, right? So but they don't get the funding the same way male owned, they just don't, because the banking and there's things are slowly changing, but one of the things that I wanted to do about this was it was sort of saying, "I see a connection here. I think I want to inspire anybody who might be listening to this industry to listen to the stories of women like yourself and people that I'm gonna interview and me, and say, there is a wealth of content to write about. You don't need to fall on the old stereotypes. And when they age, they don't lose their value. They're not jokes. They're not, stop writing you're the butt of the joke or there's the wisdom and the complexity of the lives of women when they age that they navigate are rich in storytelling, rich in value. And I what I love about your book is you give some pretty great tools for somebody who is feeling this drive, and you give some steps for them to actually, okay, I want to do this. And you give them, you take responsibility. It's not like, oh, it's all society's fault. It's like, no, you have to take some ownership here and make some choices. And that's
Yeah.
not so easy sometimes. But if you do, you can. And I'll tell you, this is where right at the beginning of the book, when it just nearly killed me. Um, and you said, and why I'm wanting to get more people to come into the store. I have to tell you, Lenny, and you'll appreciate this. I've asked some friends, some women friends, but I don't want to be on your thing. No, nobody's going to care about my story. My
Oh
story is
my
not very
goodness.
interesting. I cannot tell you how much I've been getting that. So I'm pushing back. Um, and others are like, "Oh my god, I'd be honored," So it's funny how we still have like nobody's going to find me interesting, and I'm like, "I find you interesting." But you wrote this because if you don't express your voice, no one will hear it. And the unique wisdom, viewpoint, and contributions only you can offer will be lost to the world, which, considering the chaotic state of the world we live in, would be more than a crying shame. It would be an unmitigated disaster. Wow.
Yeah. I believe that with every fiber of my being. And, you know, I'll tell you, it pains me to hear that women would say to you, "Oh, no, no, I don't really have anything to say. No one's going to be interested." But it's very typical.
Yeah.
This is what we've been trained to do, too. It's like, no, no, I can't talk about myself. Why don't you talk to Elisa? She's much more interesting than I am, right? We'd be the first to want to highlight somebody else's wonderfulness and yumminess and successes and all of that. But when it comes to actually sharing our own and quote tooting our own horn,
Right.
God forbid. And it's killing us in the workplace too. I mean, that's one of the things that holds
Well,
us back
that's
as
where
well.
this is important because this societal, um, these these things that have been drilled into us, they have a they do impact us in ways that we're not understanding, and you're watching it and talk about it in this book. You're seeing it. Talk about
Yeah,
the leadership issues and the this is again, if we don't have examples, positive examples of people in these roles, you
that's
think it
right.
doesn't exist.
That's right. And decisions will be made for us. That's the thing. You've said this, and I want to just reflect back on what you said because I thought it's just so wise. Um, but the truth of the matter is, if if we want to have our stories heard, we have to do one of two things: A, tell them; B, keep telling them. In other words, find ways to tell them. Basically, we have to find the courage to tell them, and we have to keep at it so that they're heard. You know what I mean? So that means having some. You have to be in a position. I'm thinking now of that. TV and film and any media at all. You know, if if you really want to be heard, sometimes you have to put together your own material. You have to produce things yourself. You have to get into a position of leadership to such a degree that you can attract funding, that you can, you put yourself in a producer role, you wear a producer hat. And, years and years ago when I was living in New York and I was being cast up to a point, but I was still frustrated. I produced my own one woman show. It was one of the most powerful things I ever did for myself.
Yeah.
It felt similar to writing those songs and putting them out there and then creating my own, you know, uh, my own recording company and making CDs and, putting my stamp on it and being in control of it. And I think that as women, I mean, the more of us that are willing to band together, if necessary, to create that kind of power, and I mean power in the best possible sense, people working together to put stories out there that
Well, you
reflect
change
who we
hearts and
really are.
minds through
Yes,
story. You change, you can help expand people's limited belief system through story.
that's
That's how
right.
you do it. You can't. you're not going to shame people into behaving differently. It doesn't work. You're going to have to find ways to give them a place to come to it and see. And maybe I didn't understand this. Tap into empathy. But if the same few types of people are telling the story, that becomes the narrative of who should be telling them, what should be the
That's right.
norm.
That's
And
right.
um the more women, and there are wonderful men who are allies in this. I'm not saying all men.
Absolutely.
There are
I'm married to
fabulous
one of
men.
them.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's just some of it is just old habits that they don't recognize, that they fall back on, because this is what is done. This is what we do. We just don't know what we don't know sometime. And
that's
that's
right.
because we haven't had everybody feel that their voice matters. Their voice matters. They have a
That's
point of
right.
view that is just as important as anybody else's. And I love the
That's
book
right.
that you go through steps. And I really love the part where you talk about take stock of your situation and take some ownership of how you got there. And then what do you want to do about it? Because if you
That's
don't
right.
take some ownership, you're never gonna break out of that either.
That's right. That really has a lot to do with what we were just talking about, because the truth is, first you have to look at sort of the ugly reality. Look, this is what's happening. I always say, what uns are you feeling? Unseen, unheard, unappreciated, undervalued, underused. And then you have to ask yourself, really, first have to just look at it. This is what it is. I don't like it. But then, phase two, take ownership. It's really easy to look outside yourself and blame others and wait for them to do something about it.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is about saying, this is my problem to solve, and I am going to do everything I can to make a shift or change. I'm going to write my own one woman show. I'm going to start my own production company. I'm going to write a book called Claim the Stage. I am going to put myself out there and stand for what I need. I'm the one. It's my problem to solve. What do I need to do to fix it? You know?
Right.
and In fact, I have to say, I had a great therapist once who I remember when I was working with him, I was complaining about something. And he said, "Well, Eleni, what are you going to do to fix it?" I'll never forget. He said that to me. And I thought, oh, well, gosh, well, let me think about that then.
Wait,
Um,
what do you mean?
Yeah, oh, you mean I can't just sit here and complain for the rest of our hour about it? Oh, you mean putting it in your own hands,
Right.
because that's real power.
Well,
That's
and
real power.
I think if you're it was sort of one of the things I said, I've been reading and listening to people talk about the power of story and how it has such influence, which is why I think the mass media art forms have huge influence in ways that they we don't always understand the impact of it. And we can talk about we want it to change, but it's very exciting to see and I think because technology has changes, and storytellers and filmmakers have the ability to, you know, do something on YouTube and write something and create their own stuff on their phone, which, when we were coming up in the business, it was film, it was expensive, it was very much, it was limited, the platforms, and the funding went to very few, and they were typically one demographic that told and was behind the camera in the writing room, in the writer's room, and that's changing, and it's exciting to see. But we need to have more people like yourself, and I can't tell you how important this book is to give you some sense of, you have a point of view. And I've been listening, I cannot tell you, this is what got my butt off, got my little, what's the word I want to say? Candle. You know, so many people said, if you're not going to tell your story, who's going to tell it? It's every individual. I've heard Spike Lee say it. I've heard Debbie Allen talked about it when she got her special award, and it's been repeated. It's like everybody has a story to tell, and
That's right.
you're the only one that can tell your story. And I was
That's
like,
right.
okay, Elisa, so shit or get off the pot, right?
That's
It's like,
exactly right. And the thing is, Elisa, the same things that stop you from doing that or stop everyone. We're all worried about what people think, what they're going to say about it, them not liking us, not being polite. Um, it's like I knew I put this book out, right? I put it on Amazon, people can buy it, they can write reviews, you're putting your baby out there.
yeah,
You know, um last week I got I've gotten some really nice reviews, and in the rating system you do, they like you can also give stars from 1 to 5, and I got a 1 out of nowhere with nothing, no, absolutely no review, nothing, just a random 1, and out of nowhere, which is a complete contrast to all the other loveliness, right, that has been said about the book. And I thought, and this is what we all worry about.
right.
We all worry that someone's not going to like it. Oh no, you know. And you know what? I'm reminded of Anne Bogart, okay, who was one of my most favorite. I talk about her in this book. I admire her. She's an actor's director. She's just a phenomenal force of nature. And I did a production of The Women with her at San Diego Repertory Theater. And I remember she said this one night. We were talking, we're having a beer afterwards, as actors are wont to do. She said, this audience is so quiet down here. I'm used to audiences from like London or New York. And she said, I like an audience that goes one way or the other. She said, what I want to be able to do is push my audience into loving it or hating it, because at least they're feeling something.
They're feeling something. Yeah.
I don't want to be in that neutral place. That's not what I'm here to do as an artist. And I've never forgotten it. And I thought, great, you know, but that takes some serious ovaries. It really does. It takes courage to put yourself out there. In fact, now that I think of it, it's like one of in this book, take a risk,
Take
right?
a risk.
Chapter 8, take a risk. It is terrifying
It is.
to take a
It is.
stand and show up, really show up, warts and all. You know, I'm unzipping my top as I speak. My sweater to make the point. You can't see it, but it's literally that. It's like, here I am.
Right. Well, it's page 78. If you don't do, you won't get. If you don't ask, you won't receive. If you don't speak, you won't be heard. I mean,
Yeah,
in the end, if you're feeling like this, I can't be seen, or I'm feeling invisible. Now there's a connection to being, written out of stories and that feeling. But the only way, in my mind, we start to change that is to tell more stories. Just tell more stories. So I wanted to have a platform to tell a variety of stories and to inspire anybody listening to it to say, first of all, if you're somebody listening and this resonates with you, then maybe you don't feel alone. Maybe they can do it, I can do it, or this makes sense to me, or it wasn't just me. The other thing is, if you're a creative, you don't have to go far to find great concepts and characters and how to write dialogue, because it's around you all the time. Just dive in, ask questions, especially when women age. Oh my God, the anti-aging crap that we deal with every single day. God forbid you age. God forbid. Like, well, welcome to reality. Hello, nature. You're going to get older. What does that even mean? Like, right? And my history. I lost two siblings. So
yeah,
for me, I don't take it for granted that I'm getting older. I am counting my blessings every single day, because
that's right.
you and I have lost friends who didn't have the privilege of aging.
That's
We
right.
we we had shared friends that we've lost over time, and they didn't get there. So let's stop being afraid to age and embrace it, and say screw it. This is who
That's
I
right.
am.
That's right. You know, I say embrace your crone years, you
Mhm.
know? I mean, I really mean that. There is enormous wisdom to be had. I feel like, honestly, I didn't really come into my own till my late 30s. I mean, early 40s, start to really come into my own, to start to really get a sense of who I was and what I had to say and what I wanted to share, you know? And I find that the women who come to work with me are often starting to hover around that age group. You know, they're starting to look around and they're going, what about me?
Mhm.
And I will say this. I believe with all my heart in the power of story, and it's no small coincidence that when I began writing songs, I was writing story songs,
Of
you
course.
know,
Yeah.
and in no, no and I love to write, so but I teach storytelling and I believe in storytelling, but I sincerely feel like if if you have a story to tell, and we all do, tell your story. I always like to say, tell more stories and tell them well.
Yeah.
You know, learn to tell your stories in a way that people can really hear them. Um, I always feel and take them in, and I feel like there's so many opportunities. You're right. You said this before. The playing field has been leveled. You can go, you know, you can start your own podcast. You can create your own CD, in your own bedroom. You can post, you can decide, I'm just going to post, put together a blog. There are ways to put your voice out there. And
And
we
you don't know who you're gonna touch
no,
by doing it.
no,
I think that was one of the struggles I had. Maybe this will sound familiar with any of the people they've worked with. Is like, well, what if nobody listens?
yes.
Who's going to listen to me? What if it never becomes anything? And I was like, okay, let go of the result here, at least. So
Oh,
are you doing it because you think, oh, you have to do this for everybody else? Or are you doing it because you just have to do it and allow it to unfold however it unfolds? And boy, again, the perfection shit, it's like, but if you're going
oh
to
God,
do it,
yeah.
what if it doesn't become successful? And then what does that
Oh God,
mean? And baloney
yeah. So then you don't put it out there,
at all.
or you
Yeah.
think no one's. I'll tell you. I think that's one thing that when I started writing songs, I think that's one thing that I learned. Somebody, one person would come up to me after a show and go, "It felt like you wrote that song for me."
Hmm.
And I would think, "Oh, well, I guess I did." And the fact is, it didn't matter to me. Like, it doesn't matter to me now. I don't care if one person, Elisa, one person reads this book. I felt this way about my last book, Touch the Sky. If one person reads this book or sees a keynote that I do and is moved into feeling and action and a greater sense of self and a desire to put themselves out there further and deeper and wider, right? Actually, whether it's male or female, I don't care, or
No, yeah, this is,
anything.
yeah.
That's right. But particularly for me right now, because I'm on my soapbox around women, then I then it was worth all the toil, blood, sweat, stress, freak out that, honestly, one person, one
Right.
person. And even if one person wasn't affected by it, the fact that I made the choice to empower myself to do it
Mhm.
is good enough. If in a meeting somebody shares their perspective and it gets punted to the curb, it still matters. Period.
Yes, it
If you
does.
run for office and you don't get the gig, it still matters. You know, I really
That's it. I mean, if you're n take the risk. That's what you say in the book.
that's
Take a
right.
risk.
Take the
It
risk.
I mean, we got one shot at this life, you
Yeah.
know? What do you're really gonna, I'm not gonna, in the light of what we're watching right now and
Oh well.
in the news and what we are watching when there's been a lot of baloney about petty crap of like, oh, this and I don't want you don't you're not the boss of me, blah blah blah, and freedom and blah blah blah. People who are saying no, I know who I am, and God bless the people in Ukraine right now. They're
Yes,
taking a stand for who they are, and every one of them has a stake in it. Every one of them says we matter. Every one of them. It is terrifying. It is heartbreaking. It is infuriating, but it is also inspiring in one
mm,
way because it shows you this is what it means to say, "This is who I am, and
that's right.
I matter." And these
I
people
matter.
collectively and the world is really starting to say, "Oh, yeah, they matter. This matters."
And they're willing to put their voices and their stories out there. The more they can put their stories out there, the more we can connect with them as humans, and
Yes.
the more
And the
in
bravery that they are
solidarity.
taking the bravery for some of those people who are doing it in some pretty dangerous territory, but they're telling
Incredible,
their stories,
incredible,
they are
incredible.
inspiring the world to rally around them. So, um, I didn't wanna take us into that, but it's happening, and I don't wanna pretend that it
Yeah,
isn't happening.
yeah,
It's in the background of what we're all looking at right
that's
now.
right.
So but it's, it is about watching people just say, you know, when you watch Zelensky, "We matter. We are here." And I thought, if God, I'm sitting here going, "Oh, I was afraid to record my podcast today." And like, seriously? So get over your damn self.
I know.
You have if they have that courage, you can find your voice in a meeting, you can find your voice, um, you can write a song, you can write your book because you matter. Every person on this planet, I mean, I know from a spiritual point of view, I have a strong sense that you are a soul on this planet. You got one shot, and if you're here, you matter. You exist, you matter.
That's right. You're here for a reason. You've been given talents and gifts and abilities to maximize that purpose and to manifest it. And, you know, this is about allowing yourself to rise to your occasion.
Yeah,
And really, I feel like, aren't we lucky that we have so many mediums now that allow us to express ourselves? And part of this is simply that. It's that it's it's our willingness to express what we need to express and to take ownership of it. I know that I my life changed when I decided to stop waiting for other people to allow me to have voice.
right.
So this is about really allowing oneself to lay claim to one's voice, gifts, talents. I kind of like to call it the song in you, and then being willing to put it forth out into the world without
Mhm.
apology, no matter how it's received. And you want to talk about freedom? That's real freedom. Um,
Uh-huh.
and and as women we've been silenced for generation after generation after generation, understanding that courage comes in all forms. Because Elisa, it takes enormous courage to do what you're doing. It takes enormous courage for someone to say no when they've been saying yes forever to things that are inappropriate for them. It takes courage for someone to just simply say, like one of my clients said recently, yes, I will speak at the annual event this year. You know, these are not small things,
No.
but they are acts of courage, and to celebrate any act of courage that is in and around our willingness to voice our perspective, our story, as you say, our stories,
And don't
our stories matter.
underestimate the impact that can have on another human being.
Absolutely.
Never underestimate it. You don't know how like your example of the song. You don't know who you're gonna touch. You
That's
don't
right.
know. I
That's
mean,
right.
I think of this lyric, "I will run, not walk to the farthest star. I will break the rules. I will go too far. I will rise above. I will fill the sky. I will fly.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what I cannot do. I will still try. Don't try to make me into you. I am I."
That's from the
Eleni
title.
Kelakos.
Oh, that's from the title song of my first album. And I wrote
Mhm.
that song when a song of mine was turned down by someone in Nashville, and because it didn't quite fit the mold. And so I thought, well, okay. So I wrote this song, and then it became the kind of the song. It became the whole album. It just sort of it allowed me to put together an album that really had that as its banner waving, right? I
And to
believe,
this day, you're
yeah,
still flying.
that's right. It is what I'm here to do. I always say, we're here, we have a soul role. And, if I were to look at what mine is, I would say I'm an elevator. That's what I'm here to do, is to help elevate people to achieve their potential. And that's why I was thinking the other day, my books have titles like Touch the Sky, Claim the Stage. It's like, these are directives, because I do feel that that's what we're here to do, you know?
So do you want to share your wisdom at the end of page 143? Would you like me to read it? What would Because I think it sums up this really quite beautifully.
I would like to read that, Elisa. Thank
Yeah,
you for asking me. And it's been
because I
lovely
have
having you
this
read pages
highlighted,
of
as
my
you can
book.
see right here. It's all highlighted right here, bookmark, earmarked.
Well, I'm honored that you've highlighted the book. Honestly,
Oh, yeah, look at this. I've got,
I know that's
yeah, it's
great.
all
That
over the
makes me
place.
feel very happy. Elisa's holding up a copy of my book, and it's got all these little sticky notes sticking out of it.
All over the place, yes.
That's what a writer lives for, frankly. So, you never know whose lives you might change for the better when you bravely step onto the speaking platform, into the meeting, into the conversation, and share your message, your big idea, your vision, your wisdom with your audience of one or many. That's why, when the inner nudge does come, I hope you'll straighten your back, open your arms wide, and stride forward yet again into the first step of yet another claim the stage cycle. And near the end of that cycle, when you step from the wings and into the spotlight, know and trust that the words you speak might be exactly what someone in your audience needs to hear. So drop your coat of invisibility and dare to claim the stage over and over again. Find the courage to share who you are and what you know on public platforms, large and small. And remember what my mother told me: sometimes you just have to say something. Say what you have to say when you need to say it. Say it with confidence, courage, and conviction. Say it, because if you don't, who will? Just say it, because you matter. Your words matter. Use your words to change your world.
Okay. Well, I don't know what else to say after that. I'm a little teary-eyed. Thank you for being here. Thank you for
You're
sharing your
welcome.
wisdom in my life as a mentor and a dear friend. And thank you for being a very tall poppy out there for a
Oh,
lot of people. We need
thank you,
we need you.
Elisa. Thank you. And I would say the same to you. Thank you for creating a platform that will allow people to tell their stories so they can make a greater difference, especially women, and especially women of a certain age.
Mhm.
I adore you, and it's been a privilege to talk to you.
Thanks. Thanks, Eleni.
I will fly.
Thanks again for listening. I just love that conversation. Please remember to follow the podcast wherever you choose to listen. We will include links in the show notes on our website. There's more to our story.com, where you can learn more about Eleni and the Eleni Group and find her books and CDs. The podcast was created by me, Elisa Gallagher, your host. Is produced by Brian Richards. Theme music is by Andy Littlewood. But today, as a special treat, we're going to close the podcast with the song I quoted lyrics from earlier, written and performed by the immensely talented Eleni Kelakos. So, until next
I will
time,
feel
here's
the
I Will
sky.
Fly.
I will fly. I will run, not walk, to the farthest star. I will break the rules. I will go too far. I will rise above. I will fill the sky. I will fly. Don't tell me what I cannot do. I will still try. Don't try to make me into you. I am I. I will tip the scale, overstep my mark. I will search for sun when the world looks dark. I will rise above. I will fill the sky. I will fly. Don't tell me what I cannot do. I will still try. Don't try to make me into you. I am